not all work can be measured by monetary value. In fact, some of the most valuable work is done by the heart of a cheerful giver. Welcome back to my channel, and today I want to take you through some busy days here on our little farmhouse. I am getting ready to leave the house on a trip, and when the homemaker leaves the house, well, there is a lot to do and a lot to prepare for. I thought I would share with you some of the things that I'm doing and maybe give you some encouragement to get things rolling in your own homes. I think cooking from scratch is totally doable amongst a busy schedule. You just have to keep things simple and think a little bit of ahead. So I'm whipping up some homemade macaroni and cheese to get things rolling. My plan is to make a lot of good food and get to work. So I started out by boiling some noodles and making a roux with flour and butter and adding milk to the right creamy thickness that we desired. And I seasoned with some salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic powder, and added some peas for extra nutrition. And I've been adding frozen peas to my kids' mac and cheese since they were very little, so that's something they're used to. If I had some best tips and tricks for making quick and easy food from scratch, sheet pan dinners would definitely be one of my sharpest tools. I love making sheet pan dinners, and I think there are so many ways that you can make them. Today, I pulled out some chicken legs that I had thawed, and I'm adding broccoli and chopped small yellow potatoes. My plan is to season this and cover it with barbecue sauce and bake this up. This is going to be dinner for tonight, and I'm making it ahead of time so that I can just keep it in the warm oven, and it's there when we are done working in the yard and completing our chores for today. Some of my favorite things to put on a sheet pan dinner would be bone-in chicken or chicken thighs, chicken tenders, salmon, linked sausage with cabbage and potatoes. You could also do shrimp and tomatoes and basil. There's just so many things that you can do. I don't plan all of my menus out in advance. I kind of go day by day. So my trick is to keep the pantry stocked, have lots of good meats in the freezer, and stay on top of our spices and favorite condiments. That allows me to be able to grocery shop my kitchen each day, and as long as I have some meat thought out ahead of time, I can make lots of different things with those ingredients that I have on hand most of the time. Now, the bone-in chicken legs are going to take a little bit more time. I usually cook most of my sheet dinners for around 30 minutes. This will probably take up to 45 minutes, but I usually just keep an eye on it. I'm also really trying to stay on top of the dishes when our schedule is super busy, just washing the pots and the pans and the big things as I go and putting them right away. And on these busy days, I often turn the dishwasher on a couple times. Even if the dishwasher isn't completely full, it's better to just keep that thing going and have clean dishes coming out. Preparing to leave the home means tying up all of the loose ends and things that, well, will go bad when we are out of the house. I had all of these lemon rinds that I had saved from a recipe, and I saved them to put into a vinegar cleaner. So I'm just scoring some of the lemon peels to bring out the lemon oils, and I'm going to be submerging these lemon peels in white vinegar. I like to make a vinegar cleaner by just diluting some of this vinegar into a spray bottle with water, adding a few drops of Castile soap and some peppermint oils. And this is just a multi-purpose cleaner for putting in the shower, letting it soak in the shower for 20 minutes, adding some baking soda. And I also clean my really dirty farmhouse kitchen floor with this cleaner. It's just great to have on hand, and it can last under the kitchen sink for at least a week. But this can marinate under the sink for quite a few weeks. It'll stay good in the vinegar for quite some time. I do like to make a lot of our baby's food from scratch. She usually just eats what is soft enough for her from our dinners, whether it's scrambled eggs or maybe mashed potatoes. But I do like to have some squeezy on the go baby foods on hand. And these were actually gifted to us. And so I'm just doing a little bit of pantry organization. But it's nice to have some of those convenient things on hand as well. But having dinner done early can make this day feel less stressful, and especially preparing more food than is needed. And there were a lot of chicken legs here on this pan, so we're going to have quite a bit of leftovers to nibble on for the next day. And our goal is to just clean out the fridge and eat all the leftovers, so nothing goes bad while we're gone. And that means I only had to cook a couple times within these 2 days. Whatever doesn't get eaten, I'll just put in the freezer and we can have those for leftovers when we get back. I also made an Azure standard order. I just try to keep up on the simple, basic pantry staples. So this isn't a huge order, but I'm refilling the flours and the oats, the rice, those basic staples. I also like to always have some organic tomato sauces and crushed tomatoes on hand. I make all our own spaghetti sauces and for soups and things like that. I have some canisters here on our kitchen counter that I like to keep full of rice and oats, so they are just at the fingertip. I think this is, in my opinion, the best time in the world's history to be a homemaker. Cooking from scratch has never been so easy and convenient. We have so many wonderful ingredients at our fingertips and the knowledge to go with it. I also love keeping an online cart going on Azure Standard and even Walmart as well for some of those easier things to get a hold of. And when I find that something is getting low in the kitchen, I just add that to the cart. And when it's time to press order, I usually have that list already in there and ready to go. I also keep a pretty good stash of dried fruits, and the nuts I keep in the freezer. And we make our own granola and our own granola bars. And we make a lot of oatmeal. I do like to order my flours from Azure Standard as well. And I just bought a big old 25-pound bag of organic all-purpose flour for bread making and all of the baking needs as well. I have a wheat grinder that I do like to use for my whole wheat berries. But I'm kind of shopping for a new grinder at the moment. So I do have some whole wheat bread flour as well. And all of these containers in here, not all of them, but a couple of these canisters are also getting the all-purpose flour. I usually use this canister for baking desserts, cookies, and cakes and such. And that's getting the all-purpose flour as well. But this is a chore I feel like I do quite often, sometimes on a weekly basis, just filling these 2 canisters. In a world where there are so many conveniences, you can buy just about anything in a package, anything pre-made. I think it's up to us to choose what conveniences that we're going to have in our home. And that's really just the blessing of living in a modern world, is that you get to be the steward of your home and choose and pick how you're going to run your own home. But I think the best thing to ask yourself is what value can I bring to my home, and how can I nourish the people in my home, and not be ruled to the pressures of social media, thinking that you need to make everything from scratch. There's no need to stress yourself out. So give yourself a break and enjoy the process. Choose to make things from scratch because you love the learning process and you love the wholesome taste and how it makes you feel. And maybe that means just taking one simple step at a time. I always have to do a good wipe down and sweeping after I restock all the canisters. I always end up getting rice and flour all over the floor. But I also like to give the kitchen sink a good cleaning too before we leave, so there's no funky smells when we get back. I also ordered a big old container of organic coconut oil, which I use quite often. My favorite fats to cook with are definitely butter, coconut oil, and olive oil. And I use coconut oil in my granola and lots of baking as well. And when I don't have butter, that's kind of my substitute. One of my goals was to get through all of our dirty laundry before the trip, so I'm just doing tons of loads of laundry, trying to get it folded as I go. But, folding all of the laundry and getting that all put away is going to take a miracle. And there's probably going to be some baskets of clean clothes left when we get back, and that's okay. For tonight, we're having a really simple snack. We're just making some homemade popcorn in the air popper. And my little girl gets really excited about making homemade popcorn and watching all the popcorn kernels come out. But it's just a really nice, light, and easy from scratch snack. Being a homemaker means constantly having a list of things that need to be done and trying to figure out how to prioritize those things and figure out when and how those things need to be done on the timeline. This is just a life skill that we don't learn in school, and it's something that I'm always trying to figure out how Jenna Lee does this. I think it's something that we all do differently based on our personalities and our preferences and our abilities. One of those things that always makes it on the list of priorities is bread. I know that might sound silly to some of you, but when there is bread, there is a way. When there is fresh bread, then everyone is happy. There's always sandwiches that can be made, French toast, snacks, toast. When there is bread in the home, my family is pretty darn happy, and there are so many things that can be made. So staying on top of the bread definitely makes it as a priority for us. And I'm cooking up quite a bit of bread here. I'm making 6 loaves of sourdough sandwich bread. And my plan is to bring a few of these loaves over to the neighbors. I like to share my bread with the neighbors. And we just have the best, sweet country neighbors ever who come over with their tractors and help us with the garden and help us with our animals when we're away. And so sharing my bread is just my way of saying thank you. This is a bread recipe that I use every single week. I'll make sure to pin it down below. And I just put all of the ingredients together. I let it ferment for about 12 hours. And then I shape it the next day. This is a recipe that is moist and soft and chewy. And so it holds together for a great sandwich. And so we will probably go through a loaf in a day, especially when we haven't had bread for a couple of days. Everyone is all over the fresh bread when it first comes out. And then hopefully I'll get to put maybe a loaf or 2 in the freezer. So there will be fresh bread when we get home from our trip. After the bread has been rising for about an hour or so on the hot, warm stove, I'm just sharpening a knife and giving it a good scoring on top, which allows it to rise and lift and not split all over the sides. I have found that learning to make sourdough is easier when you stick to a recipe that seems to work well. and you make it over and over and over again. And it just becomes easier every time you make it. And hopefully you get better every time you make it. You learn to make all of the mistakes and get those out of the way. And sometimes my loaves turn out a little bit different. And I just learn to flow with it. It's not a big deal. On this day, I'm whipping up a big batch of spaghetti. I know you've seen me make it here on the channel before, but it really is something that comes into the rotation quite often, probably once a week or every other week. It's just something that we can whip together really quick. I usually make a really wholesome, rich meat sauce with ground hamburger and onions and garlic. I shred a carrot, maybe chop some celery. Today I'm leaving out the celery. And I just put in a big old can of crushed tomatoes and a smaller can of tomato sauce. And to that, I add probably a whole teaspoon, maybe more, of salt. Definitely about a couple tablespoons of sugar. And I let this simmer on the stove and kind of taste it. And if I need to add more sugar or more salt, then I do. I also like to add some balsamic vinegar as well. Definitely some Italian herb season mix, a little bit more garlic powder. And I'm also adding a bay leaf as well. After making spaghetti sauce like this for years and years, I find it really hard to go back to just buying a bottle of spaghetti sauce. I just prefer these flavors so much better. It's so much richer, so much more flavor. And I love that you can add as many things as you want to it. Just because this channel is called The Pioneer Home doesn't mean that I'm going to be outside tanning a hide or wearing a costume, putting clothes on the line. What I am trying to do is bring back some basic skills that our grandmothers used to use to feed their families. And by doing so, hopefully bring back some of that wholesome, slower paced life that we're missing so much in our society. But also knowing when modern convenience is needed and how it can enrich and help you not feel so stressed out. And if that means you're buying a loaf of bread from the store this week, or maybe you do have a couple packages of pasta or macaroni in your cupboard to help you in a pinch, then so be it. I think that that's the point of being the steward of your home, is knowing when and where and how to add value to your family and your home without sacrificing yourself to, well, the cause of homemaking. So I really consider myself a modern pioneer in the homemaking world today, discovering all of the old and good wholesome ways of homemaking, but finding balance in a modern world. So we left on our trip. The floor was swept, but unfortunately it didn't get mopped. So when I got home, I was refreshed and full of vigor and ready to get back to my chores. I'm always happy to get back to my home when I've been away for a while. I'm ready to pull out the sourdough, mop the floors. I'm energized and ready to get back to work. One of the things I did when I got back was put a pot of grits on the stove, boil up some eggs, and I made these breakfast cookies for snacking and to eat for breakfasts. This is a carrot cake breakfast cookie, and it's made with 1 cup of oats and 1 cup of whole wheat flour. I'm putting some walnuts in here, and I'm just doing it in the food processor to break down those oats and those nuts so they're easier to eat in our breakfast cookies. This is a super healthy. Even though it's called cookie, it's a healthy recipe. And there is a cup and a half of shredded carrots in it as well. And there's actually no eggs in this recipe. It just comes together with some coconut oil and some honey. And I'm excited to try a few spins on this recipe as well. I think if you just stick to adding 1.5 cups of any type of fruit, you could change the flavors. So you could add 1.5 cups of apples, and you could do cinnamon and nuts, and just instead of doing the carrots, I think you could also add blueberries and hazelnuts. And so I look forward to trying a few new things in this recipe. I'll make sure to put this carrot cake breakfast cookie recipe down in the description box below, along with my favorite sandwich sourdough loaf as well. If you want to order from Azure Standard, I'll make sure to put a link down below. Another thing I did to give myself a break was to get a Walmart grocery order ready right when I got home. So I filled up that cart with lots of fresh fruits and vegetables and milk and whatever we needed, and just went and picked that up. Or if you live close, you can have it delivered to your house. But just making your life a little bit easier and having all of those fresh ingredients on hand all the time. If you haven't already, make sure to press that like button, say hi in the comments down below, and press the subscribe button. You also can hit that bell notification that will just let you know when a video comes out each week. I try to get a new video out to you every single Monday on restoring home, family, and spirit through tried homemaking skills. Thanks for being here today, and I'll catch you next week. Love you lots.